art my portion, O Lord. I have said that I would keep thy words. I entreated thy favor with my whole heart. Be merciful unto me according to thy word. I thought on my ways and turned my feet to thy testimonies. I made haste and delayed not to keep thy commandments. The bands of the wicked have robbed me, but I have not forgotten thy law. At midnight will I rise to give thanks unto thee.
Good morning, welcome to Line by Line Bible Studies. We're continuing on the book of Psalms, Psalm 19. Sorry, we're having a little technical problems this morning. Slow start. All right, Psalm 19. To the chief musician, that really belongs to the last psalm, but it's not important. It's just a division issue. I've talked about it many times. If you're coming in now, I'd probably just go back to the first time I mentioned it. A Psalm of David. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. Day unto day uttereth speech, and night unto night showeth knowledge. There is no speech nor language where their voice is not heard. Their line has gone out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. In them he hath set a tabernacle for the sun. Let's just read it. Which is as a bridegroom coming out of his chamber, and rejoiceth as a strong man to run a race. Let's just look at the first 4 verses, and then we'll go on to the sun stuff. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. This is an assertion made throughout the scriptures. One of the things he quotes part of this in Romans 10 when it talks about preaching. Actually, he's talking about faith in that passage, like Romans 10. Here, I'll bring it up. Let's see. Sorry, here we go. Bible collection. There we go. Romans 10. Romans and chapter 10. Oh, yes, about Israel. Here we go. Faith cometh by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. But I say, have they not heard? Yes, verily, their sound went into all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. But I say, did not Israel know? Yeah, it's talking about interesting things, how, like, Isaiah is very bold here. I was found of them that sought me not. I was made manifest to them that asked not after me. But to Israel, he says, all day long I have stretched forth my hands to a disobedient and gainsaying people. I think that's all from Isaiah. I have spread out my hands all the day to a rebellious people that walks after their own heart. And there's this conflict because, well, many men have gazed into the heavens and seen in it the glory of God. A lot of people just see balls of gas, right? And they look at the material aspect. You know, it reminds me of, this is going to be a weird reference, but you may remember there was a movie from the 80s called Short Circuit. And there's a robot that comes alive, right? And one of the ways in which the scientist man tests the robot to see if he's really alive is he does a Rorschach test. He takes some soup and pours it on a piece of paper and folds it in half and then says, what do you see? And the robot immediately chemically analyzes the soup, cornstarch, tomatoes, whatever. He gives it this very technical materialist analysis. But then also afterwards he goes, also butterfly, because he sees the butterfly in the pattern of the soup. And that's not necessarily an indication of life, but it is an indication of how there can be two different views when observing reality. There's a materialist view, which looks merely at the medium in which things are made. I mean, a painting is just a collection of pigments and, and media on a canvas to some people, but others, it's a piece of inspired work. It's not just media and pigments. There's oftentimes a message, oftentimes something spoken, something said, something, but not said. Something said purely through a visual, through the material. But the message often transcends the medium. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. And so the heavens are likewise they declare the glory of God. But you can be willfully blind to it or not so willfully. Israel does not know. I have stretched out my hands to rebellious people. Meaning that it's not, they declare the glory of God, but they declare it softly. It's plainly stated. It's obvious on a certain level. It's obvious. It's not just the heavens. The big heavens above and the tiny things beneath. All the amazing intricacies of the world down to human life. They maybe can explain them by material causes. It's not the question of explaining them by their causes. It's the explanation of why something rather than nothing. And the fact that it's all just too much of a coincidence. That's the perspective of one who's going to see the glory of God. They're going to think, it's too much of a coincidence. It's not, it's too, I don't know what's what I want. I don't know. There's just too much going on. It's not very good. Not very articulate there, are you, Paul? Too much going on. Sometimes it's hard to articulate, though, right? I go out, like I said, I generally don't try to pray to God by looking up into the starry sky because I feel like God is closer to me than that. And I don't exactly pray to myself, but I know that He is near me. He is even in me. So my prayers don't have to be ejected into the heavens. Though, in the presence of God's glory, we can find very inspired moments to pray. Because we can just look and see how big everything is and how small we are in the midst of all of it. And we suddenly feel a draw. We feel drawn to prayer, or drawn to reverence towards God because of perhaps being humbled in the presence of all the grandeur and majesty of the created world. As I've said on other occasions also, there's a lot of conflict between, the funny thing is, Christians will say this openly, that, and we all agree that the heavens and the glory thereof are a testimony of God's handiwork, right? And, and for what it's worth, it is a unmediated testimony, meaning it's not, it is mediated through the medium of the physical world. And I suppose you could say it's mediated over time. But unlike everything you read in the scriptures, we know it didn't all get out there by man. You know what I mean? The heavens were not authored by men. God didn't have to inspire the heavens. They're His direct handiwork. And so they are an unmitigated, maybe they're unmitigated too, but unmediated is what I want. Testimony of his handiwork. I mean, it's not, there's no human standing between you and God and the testimony. And that's why, a lot of times people, they get upset about conflicts between science and religion. And because it's mostly a conflict between your religion and science. I don't have any, my religion doesn't, I mean, there could, I suppose someone could say there are conflicts, but it's a weird thing. Because, not every statement of a scientist is a statement of science. Not everything people say is scientific. And I'm not exactly enamored with any of that, to tell you the truth. Because what people say is science is a mediated testimony of what the natural world represents. I mean, you can look at the natural world and it's not mediated. But as soon as you get someone involved interpreting it, it's now mediated again. People get involved, they get their fingers in there, and then it's like, well, do they have an agenda? They have some particular point of view they're trying to push on us? Very often that's true. Very often people have some sort of ulterior motive in the way they want to explain things and show things. All right. The firmament, the heavens and the firmament. And the firmament to them was the expanse within which all the stars were embedded. They thought it was like some sort. I don't know what they exactly thought, but it's like they could see there's something up there. You know what I mean? What are the stars in? And she said, well, they're in nothing. That's not true. They're in space. And we think of us, we think of it like, we think of empty space as nothing. But that's not correct. Empty space is not nothing. Nothing is no space, no time, no nothing. I don't even know how to conceptualize it, honestly. It's not when you have no space, it's what, filled with a solid? No. That is also space. It's just packed in space. We think, you think of an empty room in a house as space, okay, but it's empty, so it's kind of confusing. But then you think of it, if you stuff it with stuff, it's full, but it's not like the space went away. It's not like it's nothing, it's just that all the space is currently occupied. The firmament is that expanse. When they looked up and they saw the expanse above, they saw the solid, I say solid, but they see this, thing that in which the stars exist. You don't have to understand it to observe it, that there is like this thing. They call it the firmament. But I think it is really just represents space. Firmament above the heavens and the firmament, it's like they have some conceptualizations about it. And some people would I would not expect their language about the heavens and the earth to live up to a modern scientific understanding of the mechanisms and material realities of space. You know what I mean? And I don't need it to follow that for it to be inspired either. Because the inspiration is going to go on a certain level. I look to the heavens and I find them inspiring. My voice is all delayed. So when you restart your computer, do everything right, and then it's still just off. I'm going to do this just once, all right? I just want to I'm going to shut the camera down and just see if that fixes it a little bit. Probably because my computer was still restarting when I ran up the camera, and it sometimes causes lags. All right, that's better. I can already tell it's better. I'm not going to finish my sentence and then see a second later. It's still slightly off, but at least it's close. Because when it starts getting off, it's I don't know. When I see people with their vocal sync off, it's hard to watch. So, even if it's just a second, it feels like it's just audio laid over some strange video. Firmament showeth his handiwork. Day unto day uttereth speech, and night unto night showeth knowledge. The things spoken of the creation. You got a beautiful day. It's a beautiful day. Today looks like it's going to be a beautiful day. It's going to be a beautiful week. Probably the most beautiful of the year. And, you go out in the daytime, in the light of the sun, explore the world, and all the wonders of the world utter a form of speech. Now, speech, what is it? What does that mean? Speech is like we take language for granted because it's a human activity. But it's really amazing if you think about it. No other animal has anything close, like not even close to language. We make a series of just millions of sounds, depending on where, just worldwide. And they all have significance and meaning. The collection of the vowel and the consonant sounds and the gutturals and all that. And you order these sounds in a particular way and it means something. Like I make noises with my mouth and put them in a particular order, and it enters into your ear, and there's significance. It's like speech. Speech is the ordering of sounds so that they become sensible, so that messages can be transferred. I can transfer a message to you through my speech much better than I could by pantomiming. Except maybe a few things, right? Some things need to be pantomimed. I always remember, it's like, oh, like this? Sometimes you just show up someone physically. But speech is that ordered, it's not an accident that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. That the Word is that by which God formed the heavens and the earth. He spoke it into existence. And so that the created world also speaks. Okay. Sorry, my computer makes these strange noises in my ears. I'm not sure if it's coming through, but I just muted part of it. Sometimes, because language is like this, it's this amazing thing where we order our thoughts into things that are, fairly portable to other people. If I put it together clearly, I can transfer that to someone else. That's an amazing thing. And so, the earth and the created world also speaks. It teaches us. You know what I mean? And I think in more than a materialist way, there are many lessons from nature. Just to behold the fowls of the air, for they sow not, neither do they reap, nor gather into barns. Yet your heavenly Father feedeth them. Are not ye much better than they? Which of you, by taking thought, can add 1 cubit to his stature? So why take ye thought for raiment? Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They toil not, neither do they spin. And yet I say to you that even Solomon was not arrayed like one of these in all his glory. Matthew chapter 6. There are things in the earth, they speak. There's amazing things to be seen. The stars. You look up at the vast expanse. There's knowledge in that. And in fact, it's funny, more than we knew. You know what I mean? More than we knew. I mean, the things they found out from the universe, just looking at it, even the scientific information, even on the material side, it is quite a bit of knowledge. The material world does reveal many things. You know, and the thing is, it's like a lot of it, people will say like, well, you know, like I said about the can of soup, tomatoes, starch, salt, whatever else you put into tomato soup, right? You can look at it that way, but it's also, you know, it has an intention behind it. It's yummy soup. In the world, you can look at it and be like, okay, it's just balls of gas. It's just this. It's like, but there's something all too coincidental about all of it. At least that's how I feel about it. There's no speech nor language of voice is not heard. I mean, it's not by any human. It speaks all of human languages. I mean, there's no version of humanity that does not wonder at the creation. There's no speech nor language where the voice is not heard. Their line has gone out throughout all the earth. That's one quoted in Romans 10, I think it was 18, right? Their line is like measuring line. There's like, you know, that which by which all those things are measured. Measuring is an interesting process when you think about it. It's like you're taking the sum of something as you're measuring it up. Measuring tape here. Just happens to be here. I don't have to plan for that. But I mean, like when you measure something, you're taking in the extent of it. You know, like Paul talks about taking in the width, the length, and the breadth. And measuring up what all these things mean. What does it mean? How does it show God's glory? His power, his kindness. Because it does. You know, the world, like I said, a lot of times there's an interesting thing. People will complain about God. And they don't believe in him often, and they will cite their complaints. Right? And mostly it goes along the lines of, I think, you know, they suggest if there's a God, then he's bad because things aren't right in the world as they would have them. As they would have the world, it's not right. So there can be no God. But the world also is not so evil and not so onerous, not so painful, not so awful that they would concede that, well, God's evil. God wants to hurt us. He's got he intends ill towards us. At the same time, God is not, I mean, they're not able to convict him of being so bad that they could declare him evil. But he's not good enough for him to, you know, so they go down the path of like, well, I just don't think there is one. Just don't think there is a God because the message that I'm getting from nature is not clear enough. And that can be heard in a sense, but I mean, there is, like I said, I think in that they cannot declare God evil. Is like their misunderstanding of the nature of God, because they don't understand their relationship to God. I mean, like people always want to really, you know, they want to judge God. They want to subject God to their judgment. They don't want to see God's glory and then wonder at it and think like, what's God up to? They want to call him to task for what they think he's up to. I've heard plenty of people be like, I got up to heaven, I tell God, so I tell him off in a no time flat. What are you doing down there? Oh, these things are not right, and blah, 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 blah. The heavens and the firmament, day unto day uttereth speech, night unto night showeth knowledge. There's no speech nor knowledge where the voice is not heard. Their lines gone out throughout all the world. Their words to the end of the world, sorry. Their lines gone out throughout all the earth. Their words to the end of the world. In them hath he set a tabernacle for the sun in the firmament. There's a tabernacle, a tent for the sun, a place, which as a bridegroom cometh out of his chamber, and rejoiceth as a strong man to run a race. His going forth is from the end of heaven, and his circuit unto the ends of it, and there is nothing hid from the heat thereof. The law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. All right, well, hold on there. We'll just talk about the sun. In the heavens, he set the tabernacle for the sun, the abiding place. The tabernacle means tent, literally. Does it mean that the ancients thought there was a literal tent up in the sky for the sun? No, it does not. This is poetry. Poetry, say. Poetry. And so it's poetic speaking. That's a tent for the sun, the sky is. See? And a lot of times, just like with various metaphors and stuff, in poetry, it doesn't matter. You don't have to be concrete and literal about it. The sun, it comes out of its chamber like a bridegroom coming forth to take his bride. I mean, there's a certain glorious revelation of the sun. This camera's falling back again, but whatever. We'll just leave it for a while. The sun comes out, boom, it's like a bridegroom coming out of his chamber. He lights up the world. Rejoiceth as a strong man to run away race. That's, what it means is just like, you ever get ready for a race and get all pumped? I would if I was gonna up this as modern English, it wouldn't be rejoiceth. It would be gets all pumped to run a race. The way a strong man gets jacked up for a race, like, yeah, I'm gonna run a race, man. I'm gonna run. And that's very metaphorical about the sun. It's very the figure of speech called what? Personification. Right? We're going to personify the sun as if it's some guy getting excited to run a race as a bridegroom. Not literally true, but metaphorically very true. You can almost feel in the morning, and the sun is going to come up. If you're up you're probably up in the morning if you listen to this Bible study. You've definitely seen sunrises. In that moment of expectation before the sun rises, you can feel the whole world waking up as the sun is about to rise. There's like, it's just like the sunset, but in reverse as you watch it go down, then it's just kind of gone out. Very different though, but at sunrise, there's this sort of like anticipation of the sun about to rise. His going forth is from the end of heaven, and his circuit to the end of it, and there's nothing hid from the heat thereof. It's like, well, again, from the perspective of the author, he's talking about the sun, which is over the earth, and it moves across the heavens, and it's not meant to reveal any sort of scientific or materialist truth about the earth is rotating, actually, The earth is rotating, and the sun is just sitting there, flying through the universe, is orbiting the galactic center with everything else. That's kind of mentality that a lot of people have. It's like, well, this is all wrong. See? I think I've seen that, people will quote it and they'll say, look at the Bible is not scientifically accurate. They won't say, like, it says the sun is like a bridegroom and running a race like a strong man. How silly. But they'll quote things like verse 6 to sort of like, because it's obviously not mindful of the rotation of the earth. It's not being said with that at all. It's from the perspective of an observer on the ground. The sun moves across the sky. I've seen it do that thousands and thousands of times, right? Every 3 years, it's 1,000 times. So what that makes it, whatever. Every 3 years, 1,000 times, 3 46. I don't want to do the math. Thousands and thousands of times. And there's nothing hid from the... There's this, meaning the sun is this very essential thing in the heavens. And, really when he talks about the day uttereth knowledge, he's talking about the sun. The sun goes over the entire earth and it lightens the entire planet, heats it up, warms it up in the daytime, provides sunlight for the plants, for the thing, but on a daily basis, it's over all. It's always above us, always sending forth its heat. And then he transitions to the law of the Lord. What he's saying is that, what I think is being said, is the earth is, the sun moving over the earth is like a law. You know what I mean? And everything falls under it. Like we'll even use that term, it falls under the law, right? Just as the law covers everyone and every man, so the sun is over us. And so the law ought to apply like the sun. The sun, this you could even say, this is there is, in the Old Testament, a lot of people don't realize this, but the Old Testament had equal protection under the law. It was very clear that there would be not one law for the nobleman and one law for the peasant man, and not one law for the stranger and one law for the citizen, but one law. That's one of the things that I was objecting to during the Bush administration, and that I found most distasteful about his presidency, was the torturing of terrorists. And they didn't like the word torture, whatever. The extreme interrogation techniques. And whether or not they were torture, and I've had people talk to me about that and try to say, it's like, the idea that someone could be questioned, like, on some level I understand. It's like if someone's if they're planning something, right? Someone's like on that show 24, Jack Bauer, right? He's like, where's the nuclear weapon? Where'd you hide it? Where's the codes? It's going to go off in 10 minutes. In those cases, I understand why torture could work, because you could quickly get the information out of someone if there's, But in a lot of other cases where it's not like this immediate thing, you're just trying to get them to cooperate. It's not effective. But also, if someone's a terrorist, you can torture them. Well, it's like, how do you determine if someone's a terrorist? Well, in case you don't know, the government just declares it. If they say you're a terrorist without a trial. And I don't care if someone is a citizen of this country or not. That's not how justice works. Justice is not just people say it's for American citizens only. I was like, I don't believe in that. When in the Revolutionary War, we did not mistreat British prisoners of war because we're Americans and we're better than that. And so that was not done, or it was definitely stepped on when it was done and found. We believe in fairness towards men. That it's men's right. Now, people could argue like, well, there's this, that, the other. It's like, yeah, I know, but it's like there's the ideal. The American ideal is of fairness, equal protection under the law. And the analogy of the sun, there's a like, it may be not obvious when you start thinking about it. Like, why the sun? What's this got to do? The heavens show his handiwork. Well, one of the things is there for times and seasons, but they are like overall. That's what you can say most about them. And that's the point he concludes on about creation, is that the heat of the sun touches everyone. And so is also the righteousness of God's law touches all, and ought to touch all. A good law is going to cover all, ultimately. The law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. The testimony of the Lord is sure, making the wise simple, making wise the simple. All right. Now that I see that thing really dropping off, we're going to try one more time to fix the camera. It makes the simple wise. All right. So, okay, turn off the camera. And then simply turn it back on. Okay. That's better. That's pretty close. I don't mind a tiny bit of lag. I've said that many times. A little lag is okay. A latency. Right? Sorry. Same thing. I'm lagging bad. All right. The law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. The simple, making wise the simple. The statutes of the Lord are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandment of the Lord is pure, enlightening the eyes. Again, see, as the sun lightens the world, so the commandments of God lighten the eyes. Law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. What do it mean by converting there? Because obviously, it doesn't mean like gospel conversion, because this is Old Testament. But it's going to mean some kind of conversion, right? So let's look at the wrong button, Paul. Study mode, browse internet. Okay. Well, let's at least nail the transition. Here we go. Alright. And let's see. Perfect converting. The word here means to turn back. Here, I'll bring it up for you. It means to turn back, like to return, to cause to return. And that makes sense. To turn back, to return, right? Can be used in a lot of different, obviously, it's a word that's used many times in the Bible. Look at that. A different form. What is that? Is that really all the New Englishman's? Well, there's a lot on this word, man. It's loaded with stuff. I'm not even sure what to make a lot of it. Break, build, circumcise, to dig, do anything, A primitive root to turn back, hence away, transliterate, and translate. It's got a wide variety. To retreat, often or again. Well, I think it means to return. It means to return to the righteous path, is what the primary meaning would be here, right? And that's the law of the Lord is perfect, causing the soul to return to the right path. You know, when the law comes, it causes us to turn from our wicked ways, preferably, right? It causes us to return to the Lord, return to the right way. It turns the soul towards God and away from darkness, away from wickedness. The testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple. Meaning, I may not be the sharpest tack in the box, but with the law of God, my simplicity may be made wise, because I have help from the Lord, because the wisdom which God gives, which is, like I said, like the sun bakes the planet and gives light and heat to all, so also the law of God is applicable throughout all the places that one might encounter in life. The testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise. And again, people, I think as I say that, I know there are some people who are going to be like, yeah, maybe not people who study with me, but there are people in the world who will be like, oh yeah, the law of God is so great, huh? What about stoning people, huh? What about this here? They'll come up with some law and they'll be like, what about this? Some horrible stoning death. And I'm like, well, and I've always said this, it's like, if you look into you say that you don't like the death penalty is for that. I'm not saying you need to enforce the death penalty. But, like they'll say like, oh, like the stoning of a maiden, for example, if a girl is betrothed to a man and she lied with another man, she was to be stoned, right? That was the death penalty. If you were supposed to be married to someone and then you commit, and then I'm not, in Jesus though, when his wisdom, he said, let him that is without sin cast the first stone. Nevertheless, he does not negate the fact that the offense is great. The betrayal is great. The betrayal, trust and betrayal. There's a reason the law is so severe when it comes to trust relationships. You know what I mean? Because, my wife and I, we have such an important relationship with each other. It's like things like adultery are so like poisonous to that. They're so disruptive of of the necessary trust that has to exist between a husband and wife to be able to carry out family life in the best possible way. There has to be a great deal of trust in that relationship. And when it's marred by adultery and stuff like that, it makes it more difficult. But especially at the outset, like if so, it's like it can be extremely damaging. Not that not that people can't work through problems if they, a lot of times people do. A lot of times people, they have maybe early in the relationship, they have like they've been dating a short time and maybe they're dating other people and there's not this like faithfulness going on because maybe in some level it's not really understood. A lot of people don't really understand how important it is, You don't get a chance often to get to like, I've been married 25 years, and I only wish like I'd known how important it would become to me after so long. I would have been a better husband from the beginning. I didn't have any real adultery and anything at all in my past, as far as of anything, obviously I've talked about, problems with the eyes and stuff, but that's a little different. That's not quite as trust betraying as actually going out and being with another person. There's a certain intimacy and contact in that can be very troubling, or what would we call it? Be very disruptive, destructive, just all those things to a relationship that's supposed to be based on trust and particular commitment from one to the other. It's important. So, if you don't understand how serious it is, it's like adultery is serious business. It's bad poison. And the law of God has death penalties associated with it because that's how serious it is. It's an extremely serious betrayal when you've promised yourself to one person to go off to be with another. So it's like, I don't make apologies for those death penalties. I don't necessarily think we ought to carry them out. But as far as being a proper approximation of the seriousness of the offense, death is an appropriate marker of how serious an offense adultery or unfaithfulness is. It is a life and death type offense. It is so, and that's why it's given that high mark. It's like that's big betrayal. Big betrayal. You think Judas betrayed Christ. It's like, how are you going to be faithful to Christ if you can't even be faithful to your wife? It's and here's the thing. It's like, I know. It's like, I'm not saying. Like I said, if I'd been in Peter's position, I'd probably do what Peter did. You know what I mean? Especially considering he wasn't. I got to work myself up. If I want to go to Walmart, I've been avoiding Walmart for over a week because I don't want to go in. Actually, I was there yesterday. That's right. It was like a week prior to going there. Because I have to have this. I have to work up to the feeling of like being ready to respond. Like, hey, if they say anything about me not wearing a mask, this is the People's Republic of Illinois I live in. I need to be able to be like, I need to have my response ready. I can't just carelessly walk in there because I might put my tail between my legs if I'm not watching. Because I don't have this super instinct. You know what I mean? I'm not super brave. I got to work up my courage to do certain things. I'm not that courageous. I have to work up to it. And I think of Peter sitting around that fire, just trying to find out what's happening. He's saying no one will recognize me. I'll just go there and just watch. I'll just kind of be clandestine. But then when they recognize him, he's not ready for it. And so I think he's just not ready. He didn't expect to be recognized. And so he denied even knowing Christ, which he regretted very bitterly. But I understand exactly how that happened. I understand how a lot of sin happens. I understand. And it's not meant to get anyone down. But we know that the law of God is perfect, and that it makes us wise. I mean, it's again, it's the Lord's testimony. Let it give us wisdom. I mean, let God's testimony give you wisdom, and not necessarily, like I said, a lot of times people are they want to act on God's law. Like in the New Testament, they wanted to stone the woman who was taken in adultery. The law says that such should be stoned. So let's go and stone her. And they want to act on the law of God against someone else, to punish them, to bring about their destruction. And certainly, I understand that impulse. But also, we should rather use it to make us wise, to inform our own behavior. Like Jesus said, who is without sin, let him cast the first stone. Because then we would truly be in a position to judge others if we ourselves had been so righteous in obedience to God's law. The statutes of the Lord are right, rejoicing the heart. It makes you feel good when you know things are right. It causes the heart to rejoice. The commandment of the Lord is pure, enlightening the eyes. Enlightening the eyes, like I said about the sun, right? The sun lightens everything. So also the law of God lightens everything with a pure light. Light is that which makes manifest, it said elsewhere, right? It reveals, in the pure light of day, the true nature of things. And so the commandment of God also is this pure thing that reveals the true nature of things. It reveals the true right and wrong of things. It reveals the true purity of things. It purifies and is itself pure. The fear of the Lord is clean. It's got all these descriptives. The law is perfect. The testimony is sure. The statutes are right. The commandment is pure. The fear is clean, enduring forever. What do I meant by clean there? That's making me curious. What do they mean by clean? All right. Straight, right. Okay. Commandment is pure. Pure, clean. The law of the Lord is clean. Tahor. Bar. So pure and clean are just two different words for similar meaning things. I just want to see so I can perhaps gain some insight. Bar is the first one. The law of the Lord is pure. Innocent, pure, clean. It means beloved. Oh, bar. Okay. And this one means tahor, clean, pure. In what sense? Interesting. So, if you see right there, it says pure in a physical, chemical, ceremonial, or moral sense. Whereas the other one is, in its various senses, beloved, also pure, or empty. Choice, clean, clear, pure. So what did they said? So the first pure was more of a metaphorical purity. Where's my text? There we go. So the commandment of the Lord is pure, enlightening the eyes. It's pure, not in a technical sense, but in a sense of like, I suppose, like I said, beloved, meaning there's no, I don't know, it's pure in what sense? Well, in whatever, let's say in a more metaphorical sense, and whereas clean is more in a technical sense. The fear of the Lord is clean, enduring forever. Well, I'm just curious why I would say the fear of the Lord is clean. You know what I mean? Like, is that just, just picked? Well, the fear of the Lord is clean. That's what it is. It's clean. Well, there is something very, like in that sense of, I mean, I see it right now. The fear of the Lord is clean. Like when you experience the fear of God, you know what I mean? It's truly, you know what I mean? It pushes away all pretense, all excuse, you know what I mean? It kind of tends to wipe out all the other garbage and make way for this fear. Right, so the fear of God is not necessarily like I'm terrified he's going to hurt me, but is a recognition of God's power. Just as, like I said, I often use as examples, it's like if you ever stood on a high place and looked down, if you're not accustomed to such things, you feel that instant knowledge of like, whoa, I'm way up high and there's a lot of potential here for danger. Or if you've ever been in the presence of something truly monstrous or fearsome, I've used the example of a down power line. And the feeling I get when I see it surging, and I think, better be damn careful about that. And so God also, when we see God and we feel the fear of God, knowing that we are in his power, and knowing that we are so dependent on him even to live. If the fear of God enters into our hearts, it is clean. Because it wipes away all the pretense, all the nonsense, when we truly fear the Lord. And if we have God's fear, it's something that it endures forever. A lot of times people don't understand or like the idea of fearing the Lord. But every man should know the fear of God. Every man should believe that there is something bigger than he is. To know that there is a law overall. Just as the sun shines down on the world, there is a right and a wrong standard that is reigning over everything. And all men must be obedient to it, or we will have absolute chaos and wickedness on the earth, and which we have quite a bit of already, because a lot of people do not know the fear of God. The judgments of the Lord are true and righteous altogether. Again, just affirming the things we've already said. More to be desired are they than gold, yea, than much fine gold, sweeter also than honey and the honeycomb. Moreover, by them is thy servant warned, and in keeping of them there is great reward. Who can understand his errors? Cleanse thou me from secret faults. Keep back thy servant also from presumptuous sins. Let them not have dominion over me. How much time I got left? Of course I got no time. I'd hope to finish the whole psalm, and I could finish it. But there's like 5 minutes, really? I got 5 minutes left. No, wait, let's see. Live is 57, recording is 50. Why is that off so much? Oh, because I start streaming way ahead of it. It's always confusing now with the way they do this and the way they change the YouTube streaming thing. Okay. The judgments of the Lord are true and righteous. They are more to be desired than gold, yea, fine gold. Sweeter also than the honey or the honeycomb. Again, these analogies being made, it's like, it's valuable. I mean, just the sun is more valuable than gold. I mean, what would you have, a lot of gold or the sun? The sun produces all the plants. It warms the earth. It provides so many things, and so God's law is like that. Is more desirable than gold. Better than honey and the honeycomb. Sweet. Necessary. And also bringing about, because without law and order, we have chaos. It can never be, all that follows is misery and suffering. Moreover, by them thy servant is warned, and in keeping of them there is great reward. That God is pleased when we keep his commands. When we do the right thing. As I've said, I don't believe the Old Testament commandments are for Christians. Meaning that and people get upset about that, but they don't understand what I mean. It's like, we have the law of Christ, which is more strict. Thou shalt not kill, and thou shalt not hate thy brother in thy heart. That's also an Old Testament law. But I mean, there are so many more ways that are right than that are contained in the Old Testament law. Though it is good, it is a good guideline, it is a good schoolmaster. And I always say it was always meant to be not, there's always more. There are always new matters of conscience, things that come up that we need to learn, like we need to know what to do in this new situation. It's not obvious because it hasn't been existed in the past. It hasn't existed in the past, it hasn't been spoken of. And in keeping of them, there's great reward. Servant warned. Well, I want to be warned. There are many things in the law told not to do. It's like, oh, thou shalt not commit adultery. Why? It's so much fun, and you ruin your life. You ruin your marriage. You destroy your relationship. You destroy the bond of trust. Oh, we have an open relationship. Yeah, sure. You can have that. And say it works fine. They say it works fine. I've heard people say, oh, my weird thing I'm trying, it works fine. We're happy. How long you been at it? A year. Oh, I'm so impressed. A year. 2 years. I always love when people say like a year or 2 years or 3 years. How long have you been doing this little experiment? How long has this experiment been going on? Oh, I'm just going to do this real quick while I do this. They connect their little experiments with the way the world ought to be. Like, oh, we think marriage can be like this. We're just going to, there we go. Back on track with the camera. I don't know why today it keeps falling behind. It's falling behind already. I've said to people, it's like, you think you're happy in your situation, but you don't know what happy is. Nobody really does until you get there. Oftentimes I've said to people, and we're going to start at verse 12 tomorrow. I'm not going to go another verse because I want to say this, and this will wrap up the study. Happiness. It's like, I've talked about on many occasions how if we lived on a planet where people were missing their arms and legs, we would all think that was perfectly normal. And, there were no, like, we wouldn't be like, limbs, where are they? Just as I don't say, like, why don't I have a third arm? A third arm would be so useful, or just 2 pairs of arms, right? Like those Hindu gods, right? Have multiple arms. It'd be so useful, like an octopus. Or there are all kinds of things. I could have wings and I could fly. Wouldn't that be great? I don't know how much, would I be happier if I could fly? I think I'd be exhilarated if I could fly. You know what I mean? It's like, if I could fly without use of it, you mean just me? Just like in my dreams? Right? So we understand fantasy, right? Like the fantasy of flight, the fantasy of, And people have fantasies and dreams about their lives too. Right? But what if someone could fly? I mean, like on their own. What they, I mean, they would be able to tell you if they hadn't flown before and then they had flown, how much happier they are flying. And I look at that like a long-lasting marriage. It's like people who are experimenting with weird relationships and stuff. And I've had, and they talk about what they want out of life. I've talked to young people who say things, and I'm like, you'll never know what you're missing out on if you would live your life in faithfulness to one person for like a quarter century. The benefits you would reap after so long a time together. Especially if you work hard to get along and to build up bonds of affection and of trust and of just memories, companionableness. I mean, like you spend time together, you like each other, you like each other more. Like as you more and more have a successful relationship, like you can't just take those 25 years and then do something else with them. I mean, like they've been, I mean, like what I mean is like if you don't spend 25 years building a 25-year relationship, you'll never have one. And you won't even know what you're missing. Just like the planet with no arms and legs. You don't know, because a lot of people around you maybe have crummy relationships too. You think like, oh, it's perfectly normal. But then you have someone zipping in from the sky on their wings and with their 4 limbs saying like, this is great. And like they say, well, my friends all say this is fine. I'm living here on the ground in torso land. I compare that to marriage. It's like it's not immediately obvious because it takes so long to grow. You know what I mean? But you don't know what you're missing. If you you know what I mean? And I'm not trying to make some people aren't married and it's fine. But I'm just saying people get involved with weird relationships and stuff and they do things. It's like you can end up with all kinds of regrets for those things which you should avoid. And if you have them, then you have to get over them. I mean, I have regrets in my life that I have to get over. And if I can't get over them, I'm never going to be content. So I get over them so that I can find contentedness. It's like that's why we have the forgiveness that Christ gives us through sacrifice. It's like it helps us to finally decide that things are settled. To let things end, to let things have their end. So I saved the last couple of verses because I just did not want to rush those verses. We'll begin at verse 12 tomorrow, and we'll also go into Psalm 20, which is a brief psalm. We'll see. Maybe we can get all that in one go. Anyways, thanks for joining me in this study. We'll conclude Psalm 19 tomorrow, no doubt, if nothing else. All right? So.
Thou art my portion, O Lord. I have said that I would keep thy words. I entreated thy favor with my whole heart. Be merciful unto me according to thy word. I thought on my ways and turned my feet to thy testimonies. I made haste and delayed not to keep thy commandments.